Welcome to another Unpacking Cyberpunk Red video. My name is Ash, and today we're looking at character creation in Cyberpunk Red. We have the full version now, the core rulebook. Prior to this, we've been working with just the Jumpstart kit, but now that the full version is out, we'll be covering the expanded info that we have, including all 10 of the roles. We've got a video on those coming very soon. And in this video, we'll be covering the 3 methods that this game offers for character creation. We'll explain all 3 in detail in this video, and we'll actually demo the first 2 to give you a sample of what's involved. It'll be a broad overview, but whether you're new to tabletop gaming or you're a veteran of the Cyberpunk series of games, it should give you a good idea of what Red has to offer in terms of creating characters. I should note that the core rulebook, which you'll be seeing snippets from in this video, is available now in both physical and digital versions, and Artel Games has gone above and beyond to make the game accessible to beginners without sacrificing the complexity and depth that veteran players probably want. There's a lot of flexibility in how this game can be played. Our associate Jamie Catalyst dug deep into it and joined us on our live podcast to explain the process of character creation. I trimmed down the conversation into a concise package and added appropriate images to help solidify the concepts, and that's what you'll be seeing for the rest of this video. She created 2 characters to use as samples, one fixer and one solo. And for the sake of time, I mostly focused on the solo example while I was editing the video, but you'll see some details about the other character as well. And with that, I'll turn you over to our conversation about Cyberpunk Red character creation. And special guest today, Jamie Catalyst. If you've been with our channel for quite a while, you'll have seen several videos from her, especially more recently, specifically some videos about Cyberpunk Red, and that's what she's here to talk about today. She's kind of our resident tabletop gaming person, so she's been going through all of this. We're going to be going through the character creation process. We got a preview copy of the core rulebook, which is available now. Check out Artel Games' website. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie now.
Okay, so the first thing I want to go over here is the character creation methods we have here that you'll be seeing on the screen. So there are 3 different character creation methods in this game, and I really appreciate this, honestly. Complete props to Artel because I did not expect how expansive this character creation was going to be. And the fact that they have methods implemented already where you can either just pick a template or do it a little bit more than a template, or literally just go whole hog creating the character. I just really appreciate that they have those methods in place for people. So the 3 methods going over is, as said, the Street Rats, which is actually a template-based method. So that's basically, you just pick the role, and everything else is picked for you. You just go through the book and basically copy and paste all the different things that they have already picked out for you based on the role that you picked. The next one is Edge Runners, which is fast and dirty. This one's a little bit more complicated. Obviously, you pick the role and you get to pick a couple of more things. There's some flexibility, as it says. You can either pick in a lot more detail, or you can still just go by some of the templates they have set up. And then there's the complete package, which if you have never played a tabletop game or you've never played a Cyberpunk game or a game this detailed, I have played D&D for years, and there's so much detail and a lot to learn, especially if you are not familiar with this genre and this story and these details. So I would recommend definitely don't start with the complete packages or the calculated method if you are not familiar with any of these things, because it is a lot and it will take you probably maybe 2 or 3 days to set up a character with that method. There's just so much to go through. I feel like their Edge Runner method is perfect. It's exactly the medium of you wanting to go a little bit more detailed, but not wanting to really super get into it. So those are the 3 methods of character creation, but for the sake of time, we're just going to do the template and fast and dirty method, which is the Street Rats and Edge Runners method for the 2 characters I have set up here. So the 2 characters, we have a solo, which is named Blade, and then we have a fixer, who's a female character named Psyche. So we have Blade and Psyche, a solo and a fixer.
And you used Street Rat method for one and Edge Runner for the second one?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome.
The very first thing you're going to do is pick the role. We've already picked the role because we have Solo and Fixer. Whenever you pick a role, the big thing that you do not pick that comes with the role, that's why you pick that role in particular, is their certain abilities and what they're going to be doing. So for Solo, their ability is combat awareness. So with combat awareness, a Solo could call up their training to have an enhanced situational awareness of the battlefield. I'm not going to go any more over it than that. That is like the base first sentence of their ability. The Fixer ability, which is called Operator. Fixers know how to get things in the black market and are adept at navigating the complex social customs of the street where hundreds of cultures and economic levels collide. So that gives you an idea of what the Operator ability is. It's basically you can get stuff and you know where to go to get stuff. That's a really big thing to keep in mind when picking a role, is their abilities. Now, the next thing we're going to do is run your life path, as you see on this page here. With the life path, the very first thing you're going to pick is your cultural origin. When you pick a culture, beside those, we have a bunch of different languages, which are a part of those regions, and you get to pick one. However, someone had a question earlier about, well, what are we all speaking so that we all know what each other is saying? The default language is street slang. So it's basically like English or Common. It's the default language. And then the language you pick associated with your cultural region after that is the secondary language, and you get to pick one at the beginning of the game. You get the option to either pick some things or roll. For Blade, I actually picked things, and for Psych, I rolled things with a die. And the 2 die you're going to use a lot for rolling things in this game is going to be a 1d10 and a 1d6. For this character, he has a cultural origin of Southeast Asian. From Southeast Asian, we could pick a number of different languages. There's a list here, and you could pick one. All right, so the next thing you're picking for background is your personality. As said, this is another you could either pick or roll. And so for our Solo that I created, I gave him a rebellious, antisocial, and violent personality, which honestly, I kind of think I slightly made John Wick with this character without even meaning to. The different personalities, you could either get something really interesting or you could pick up something that you might have a little trouble playing. It'll be fun, but it'll be different for sure.
Very cool.
Okay, so the next thing for our Solo Blade is actually dress and personal style. We picked nomad leathers for our Solo, and then there's actually a bunch of hairstyles that you can roll for too, but I just kind of went with what was next to nomad leathers, which is short and curly hair. Now that I think about it, that's going to look weird on that character visually. And the next thing you roll is basically an item you're never without. And for him, I picked, tattoos? So he has tattoos, and there's a bunch of different things here: ritual scars, spiked gloves, nose rings, those kind of things that your character has. It's maybe a little extra visual detail for them. And the next thing we have here is your motivation and relationships. This is another 1d10 roll. There are different things that you can pick that would have your character either kind of be on the side of most everyone, like you're a good guy. In D&D, it's different alignments. So it's kind of like that, but a little bit more base. With my Solo, who just wants money, he doesn't really care what side he's on, whether he's fighting somebody that's technically a good person or a bad person, he just wants money, so he remains neutral. For the next thing we have here in background, we have things that you value most. So most valued person in your life. What I picked for that for him is a pet, which is what made me think he was kind of John Wick-esque. Most valued possession you own, I ended up picking a photograph, which is like a photograph of his dead wife or something, because I kept thinking of John Wick. So the next thing is your original family background. And for this guy, we have a savage, violent home in any place the gang could take over. You were usually hungry, cold, and scared. You probably didn't know who your actual parents were. Education? The gang taught you how to fight, kill, and steal. What else did you need to know? Environment, which was basically the environment you grew up in. And his environment ran on the street with no adult supervision, which, I mean, that fits. Which is another interesting thing I would like to point out. If you are rolling, sometimes you'll roll stuff that doesn't quite match, and that's a little weird. But sometimes you gotta make it fit. So the next thing we have here is your family crisis. So we have your family was killed and you were the only survivor, which may have worked out well for him and your friends. One thing I would like to go over real quick that someone might have a question about, because this confused me a bit. There are certain things that when you roll, it says roll a 1d10 and subtract 7, minimum of 0. To see just how many friends you've made so far in your life. For each friend, roll on the table below. So there's a couple of these, your friends, your enemies, your lovers. So you roll a 1d10 and subtract 7. That just means that's whatever number you get is how many other times you roll to see what kind of friends or enemies you had. So say you roll a 1d10 and you get a 10, and subtract 7, you roll 3 more times for 1d10, and take the numbers that you get, like say you get a 3, a 1, and a 5, which would mean you have a teacher or mentor, you have a former lover, and like an old sibling to you. So you have those 3 and you keep them. However, something to keep in mind, most of the time when you roll for friends, enemies, or lovers, most likely you won't get any, just because of how dice are. Once again, there's flexibility with this. It's all up to you and your GM. You could just pick one if you want, because you at least want to have one because it fits maybe with your character background or details or anything like that.
For sure. And, you can play it however you want. Mike Pondsmith's not going to be pounding down your door being like, oh, you're not following the rules. No, they want you to have freedom. The core rule book, it gives you a structure for the game.
Exactly.
That you can follow, you can deviate from, you can play it however you want, with the people you're playing with. It provides you a lot of flexibility in that you have these 3 different methods for creating your character. One that's like really quick and basically a template. One that has some customization, but it's still really quick if you're pressed for time. And then if you want to go really in depth and spend a long time customizing every little aspect of your character, that method actually, the most complicated method, you start with a pool of points and a pool of starting money, and you build your character that way. So you buy attributes with your points, and you buy starting equipment with your starting money. So you can go as in depth as you want.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to what we were picking here for Blade.
So we're still in running the Lifepath, and there's a lot more steps here. So how much more is there in running Lifepath?
We're pretty close to the end on this, but I'll speed it up a bit here. We were on friends, so I picked an old enemy for Blade. Then for enemies, I picked a government official. One of you was a business rival. For enemies, the idea is that you roll for the enemy, and then you roll for what caused them to become an enemy and who's been wronged. Like, did you do the wrongdoing or did they do the wrongdoing? And then in the third box, you pick what can they throw at you? Are they a part of a powerful corporation? Do they have the backing of a corporation to basically antagonize you? Are they using the cops or law enforcement? Is it just themselves? Or for one of them, it says just themselves or just themselves and a close friend. And so for Sweet Revenge, what are these enemies going to do? What are you rolling for these enemies to do when they come across you? Or what are you going to do when you come across them? There's just 2 things left. Your tragic love affair, which I picked your lover went insane or cyber psycho. And then your life goals, which is to become feared and respected. For Blade here. And real quick, I'm going to go through what I rolled for the Fixer Psych. I rolled Pacific Islander. I rolled for personality, intellectual, and detached. For dress and personal style, I rolled gang colors and spiked boots or heels. For motivations and relationships, I rolled power, people are untrustworthy, don't depend on anyone. For things you value most, I rolled a brother or sister and a book or diary. For background, I rolled combat zoners, a step up from a gang family. Your home was a decaying building somewhere in the zone, heavily fortified. You were hungry at times, but regularly could score a bed and a meal, homeschooled. I rolled for your environment, a nomad pack moving from place to place. I rolled your family crisis. You are the inheritor of a family debt. You must honor this debt before moving on with your life. For friends, I rolled a teacher or mentor. For enemies, I rolled a person you work for. And for sweet revenge, I rolled avoid the scum. For a tragic love affair, I rolled nothing. I got a 0 on that one. And for your life goals, I got get rid of a bad reputation. So some of that actually works really well together.
Very cool.
Okay, so the next thing we have actually that I'll go over real quickly is actually an extension of the life path. It's role-based life path. This one I can go through real quick. For a role-based life path, it's just the additional bits of life path that are only things for certain roles. So a solo will get different questions than a fixer will. What kind of solo are you? I rolled corporate enforcer who takes jobs on the side. And then what's your moral compass like? I rolled always working for good, trying to take out the bad guys, which makes no sense for that character, but we'll keep going on. Who's gunning for you? A corporate lawman or a lawman who mistakenly think you're guilty for something. Next question is, what's your operational territory? And I rolled the whole city. So now we're going to go down to statistics. Most people that have ever played any type of tabletop simulator, they're going to know statistics as stats. And just like in D&D, you have a group of stats here that make up your character's capabilities in different things. The 10 primary stats that you have in Cyberpunk Red are intelligence, willpower, cool, which I would like to say cool is charisma, just so you know. Empathy, tech or technique, the ability to manipulate tools or instruments. Then we have reflexes, luck, body, dexterity, and movement. The two different methods that we're doing here, for method 1, for Street Rat, there's just a template. You go and find the role that you're using, roll 1d10, and you can copy and paste the numbers that you already have. And then, method 2, you're going to roll 10 1d10s. And depending on what each one of those rolls give you just find it in the chart for what number you rolled for those stats, and you write them down. The next thing we have actually, hit points and humanity.
Is this derived statistics? Because they derive from the stats?
Yes, they are, definitely.
Okay.
The two most important things that you need to know for hit points is what your stat of will is and what your stat of body is. You find where the two meet number-wise. So our solo has the body of 6, and they have a will of 6. So you go on the chart, and then you basically go to where those two meet up in a box on the chart. Our solo has an HP of 40. That method is the same. Doesn't matter whether you have if you're using a template character with Street Rat or using a little bit more advanced character, that method is exactly the same no matter what kind of character you're making. So next thing is humanity. This one's also really easy to do if you just have it in front of you, which actually it's really easy to do even if you don't have it in front of you. The main thing about humanity, because it's connected to empathy, it is an expansion upon the empathy stat, is it decides how easy or how hard it would be when you start adding cyberware to your character for you to get cyberpsychosis. And it also determines, like I said, just an expansion upon empathy, how well you interact with the people in the world around you. Those are the two main things about humanity. And this one is really easy to do. They do have a chart here, but now that I'm looking at it, you don't even need the chart. So say your character has an empathy of 5. Just times it by 10. They have a humanity of 50. That's it. That's all you do. So for skills, you have 13 basic skills that it doesn't matter whether you're copying, pasting, whether you're making a more complicated character or an edge runner. These 13 basic skills you have to have.
So there's some skills that everybody has because
yes,
you basically need those skills to play the game.
Yeah. For Street Rats, the template, you don't get to pick anything. You have the chart here that you copy and paste it from. For Edge Runner, you don't get to pick those starting skills either. But for Edge Runner, you get to pick what skill level each of them are at. You get 86 points to use You have to have a skill level of at least 2 in, I think, every skill that you pick, and the ones you don't. And they cannot be over level 6. So you have to do the math on this one, because you have to figure out exactly what to lead up to with 86 points. All right, so moving right along, we have armor and weapons next. This one's easy though, because with Street Rat and Edge Runner, all of this is also predetermined. It's already picked. But if you were playing the complete package, which is the one we are not going through currently, this is one of the parts that makes the complete package probably take a really long time to create, because you are given, like I said, the money in the pool of points. Although the money is the main thing for this one for armor and weapons, you're given about 2,550 Euro bucks to buy any weapons, armor, gear, or cyberware you want. And that's a lot. There is a lot for each of those categories to go through and pick and choose on, and a lot of it's really good and interesting. So if it was someone like me who's super indecisive because I want everything all the time, it would take me forever to finally decide which ones to pick for a character. Which is why I appreciate that for the other 2 methods, you don't get to do that. The very last thing I want to say about the armor and weapons is you do have to pay for ammunition. So you do have to keep up with how many bullets you're using when in combat, because if you run out, and you do have to pay money for more ammunition, and I kind of love that, because that's an extra edge to the game that I feel would get really funny, especially if somebody is playing really recklessly and the DM has it out for them. They can count their bullets and be like, oh, you're out. So it's like, what? I'm in the middle of a firefight. Nope, too bad. So the next thing we're hitting here is outfit and gear. Another thing that is predetermined for both Street Rat and Edge Runner. The next thing is cyberware, and once again, it is predetermined with these 2 types of characters. And there's a lot, I would like to say, a lot of cyberware you can go through. And an interesting little detail that they put in is there's 3 different ways you can get cyberware installed, which I believe it comes down to what cyberware you get, where you get it.
So that pretty much wraps up our overview. Like I said at the beginning, it's pretty broad, and there's a lot to take in there, and of course, we couldn't go into some of the deep complexities of the most advanced method of character creation. That would be a whole very long video in itself. But I hope this was helpful to you. If you are curious about Cyberpunk Red or interested in picking it up, or maybe you already have and you just wanted more info about character creation, please do slam that like button if you appreciated this. And if you are looking for tabletop players, a good place to start for that might be our Discord server. We've got a lot of Cyberpunk and tabletop fans there. You can find the invite to the server in the description below this video. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to check out the rest of our Unpacking Cyberpunk Red series. I'll put a link to the entire playlist in the description below as well. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell, and then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.